The following review has been made possible by a donation from Shammy69. Thank you, sir. I hope my torture was worth your hard-earned money. And as always, show me your red, son. I first encountered Max Payne on PC. I liked the voice acting and the whole noir detective vibe of the thing. I thought the bullet time effect was cool for its time. Later on I played it for the PS2 and I couldn't fucking stand it. I was still playing shooters exclusively on PC at that time, and I didn't feel a controller really did the game justice. It was just easier to control for me with a keyboard and mouse, and the PC version looked better to boot. A lot has changed since then. I quit playing games on PC aside from the occasional RPG. I adapted to using a controller for playing shooters, and Max Payne just isn't the innovation that he used to be. For me, one of the best aspects of the Max Payne series was the storyline. Ragnarok, Valkyrie, his ceaseless quest to avenge the death of his wife and child. It all came together to form what, at the time, was one of the most compelling narratives I'd ever experienced from a video game. It was unique for its day, not just for its graphics and bullet time effects, but for the depth of its story and how it was told. A mixture of crime noir and almost but not quite sci-fi story elements, making it feel somewhat like a mixture of LA Confidential and Blade Runner. Max Payne 3 does away with the comic-style cutscenes in favor of a more modern aesthetic, but story-wise pales in comparison to the original titles. Aside from Max himself, the story Rockstar tells here is not connected in any way to the first two games of the series. There's no futuristic super soldier serums here, folks, not unless Goldschlager counts. The plot essentially plays like a side story, the adventures of Max Payne in Brazil, almost as though Rockstar is trying to remold Max as some kind of burned-out, alcoholic American take on James Bond, where one installment has no connection to the one that came before it, except for the protagonist himself. The story is told in fine fashion, with excellent voice acting, but the plot doesn't fit the style in which it's told. I feel this is mostly because of the fact that Sam Lake, the creator of Max Payne and writer for the first two games, was not involved in this production. Instead, Max Payne 3 was written by Dan Houser of Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto 4, and Bully fame. James McCaffrey is back as the voice of Max, and still brings to the character that same Mickey Spillane noir style. And that's fine for stalking through the dimly lit back alleys of New York, or the foggy streets of 50s era LA, or even the rolling hills of San Francisco in the 60s and 70s, but it just doesn't feel right when walking around the shanty ghettos of modern day San Paulo in a Hawaiian fucking shirt. It's like they took Mike Hammer and stuck him in a Michael Mann movie. The tone McCaffrey brings doesn't fit the plot his character is put in. I realize they were trying for a fresh start with the character, hence why they put it 9 years after the last game, but with this storyline, they constantly break up the flow of the plot to take you back repeatedly, time and time again, via flashbacks to Max back in New York, as though they want to make sure that you know it's the same character from the first two games. Without those cutscenes, they could have stuck any cop in the main role, and the game would feel no different than any one of a handful of gritty crime shooters from the last two gens, most of them done by Rockstar, only with a character who doesn't fit into the style of game he's starring in. To me, it would be no different than Nathan Drake taking a job as a beat cop and showing up in a sequel to LA Noire. It just doesn't fit. Which brings me to the gameplay. The bullet time is still there, the shoot-dodge move is still there, but the addition of over-the-shoulder aiming that was popularized by Resident Evil 4 and a cover mechanic makes the game feel more like a generic third-person shooter of this gen than it does the previous two games that it's a sequel to. It's still possible to burst into a room full of bad guys and do repeated shoot-dodge dives from baddie to baddie, which has always looked kinda stupid when you think about it, but now it's also possible to just go from cover to cover, knocking off the bad guys whenever they pop up their heads, just like Uncharted or any other third-person shooter, only here it's even easier thanks to the bullet time. Mixing these two mechanics together makes the game easier than the previous two games in the series, short of unlocking it and playing it on hardcore difficulty, or pretending that there is no bullet time or shoot dodge at all, and just playing it like a standard third-person cover shooter. But that defeats the purpose of it being a Max Payne game, does it not? Essentially, it is fully possible to run into a room, shoot dodge the first 3 guys you see, land and take cover, hit bullet time and take out 3 more, then just shoot dodge over and over around the room, looking for all the world like a human frog, slow-mo killing anything that moves, and then walking out of the room without getting hit by a single bullet. And watching that as a spectator, watching Max frog leap from bad guy to bad guy, is just fucking hilarious and does nothing but remind you that you're watching a video game and not a movie, even though that's the feel that they're going for. The aiming system doesn't do you any fucking favors either, at least not without some serious tweaking. The default aiming sensitivity is pure ass. I had to crank everything up to 9 so when not in bullet time, I wouldn't feel like I was moving my gun through molasses, and even so, I repeatedly ran into issues with the cover shooting. Oftentimes Max's head would get in the way of the shot, with no way to switch shoulders for a different angle, and so I'd have to move to a different cover spot to see if I could get a better angle on the target. And even then, sometimes when trying to aim, Max would hold his gun straight up into the air instead of aiming it at the target, as though I were facing a wall and he didn't have the room to hold the gun in front of him, instead of like leaning against the wall next to an open doorway. This would invariably cause me to get shot as I'd go to aim at the bad guy, and instead of holding my gun forward, I'd end up firing into the ceiling, wasting ammo in the process and giving the enemy an open target at my chest. Several early buyers complained about this same glitch, but to date it has not been fixed. Melee attacks are contextual. If you're close enough to an enemy, squeezing the same trigger to fire your weapon will cause a melee attack. The problem with that is if you're holding L2 to aim, you'll just end up firing your gun, so you have to remember to let go of L2, then hit R2 again, and even then the game won't always detect that you're close enough to pull off a melee attack, and Max will fire from the hip instead. And since the shoot dodge button is R1, right above the melee button, there were several instances where I ran up to an enemy meaning to melee him and accidentally hit R1, causing me to shoot dodge right past the motherfucker and fly headfirst into a damn filing cabinet. And that's another problem. Often, it can be hard to tell how far or how high Max will shoot dodge. Sometimes I've been able to shoot dodge over cover and have enough hang time to shoot 3 or 4 guys before hitting the ground, and then sometimes I'll go into a shoot dodge and only go maybe a couple of feet and hit a low object that Max should have been high enough to vault right over, and then end up falling face first right on my face and having to fire with my back to the ground until it's safe to get back up again, which takes longer than it should. Having the ability to shoot dodge into a roll and then roll back straight to your feet instead of having to push yourself back up would have been a nice way to avoid getting shot in the back when you land wrong. The graphics are good for the most part. Motion capture was used here, but there are some scenes where you absolutely wouldn't know it if Rockstar hadn't mentioned it in their press releases. There are numerous scenes of Max walking where he walks like a character from a game made 8 years ago, where his movement above the waist doesn't match the movement of his legs, giving him the appearance of slow-mo ice skating across the sidewalk. Additionally, the facial animation doesn't seem to always do as much as it should. Sometimes Max's upper face is so immobile, he looks like a recent recipient of Botox. I've also seen instances of his leg appearing to cut through his own jacket when sitting down, and other general graphical glitches I wouldn't expect to see from a Rockstar game, especially not one that was pushed back over 2 years from its original release date for further polishing. And don't even get me started about the fact that here Max is, in South America. He grows a beard and shaves his head, and it makes him look for all the world like Zach Galifianakis from The Hangover Part 2. What the fuck is up with that shit? One thing that has been bragged about a lot with this game is the lack of loading screens, how the cutscenes blend right into the action. Really, this is sort of a half-truth. You see, the cutscenes are the load screens, and they are, for the most part, unskippable. So if you die before reaching a checkpoint, you get to sit through that wonderful cutscene again, and it won't let you skip it until 10 to 15 seconds before the scene would end anyway. If you've already played through the game once, and the plot has no more surprises in store for you, this can be a major fucking pain in the ass, pun intended, especially considering that these load screens, disguised as cutscenes, can go on for 5 minutes or longer. You click to skip, and click to skip, and click to skip, only to be told, still loading. If that's true, that makes Max Payne the game with the longest load times of any fucking game released this generation, bar none. Finally, we come to the multiplayer. Well, first off, I noticed that they had a rookie room for people who were first-timers, so they could play with fellow first-timers and be on a basically even playing field until they got leveled up high enough to go into the standard rooms. There's just one problem with that. No one fucking uses it. I sat in that room for 10 minutes and only one other person was added to the match, only to realize that I was the only other person added to the match and dropping off a couple of minutes later, again leaving me there by myself. Finally, I just said the fell with it, and I went straight into a standard deathmatch. And as is par for the course with console multiplayer, you guys wonder why I quit playing multiplayer with the PC and never picked it up with the consoles. Jesus Christ. I was stuck in a match with 7 other people, all ranging between 20 and 40 levels higher than I was. I'd have to pump a full clip into a guy's back to kill him, while others could one-shot kill me from across the fucking room. It also seemed that the melee attack was an unlockable maneuver for me, as hitting the R2 button to melee was not working for my character. So either you can't melee until you level up a few times, or the melee attack has been moved to a different button in multiplayer, or for some reason it was just glitched in my match and I couldn't do it, all of which are just stupid in any fucking case. I also noticed that shoot dodge didn't appear to work either unless I activated bullet time first. In the single-player campaign, Max can shoot dodge whenever he wants, whether the bullet time meter is empty or not. But in multiplayer, if I hit F1, Max just dives face first straight to the floor at normal speed. To shoot dodge, I had to first hit R3 to go into bullet time, then hit R1 to shoot dodge. And even then, it might not have been as effective as it seemed to be, set on a sort of line of sight system where the game decides who saw who first if both players went into shoot dodge at roughly the same time and awards the kill to whoever it feels saw the other first. This makes possibly for one of the most fast, frantic death matches I've played in quite some time. The first time I played, I racked up 14 kills to 24 deaths, which, considering I was a level 1 playing against a room of 25s and 40s, I considered that pretty damn good. I placed 6 out of 8, so I still wasn't the worst. There's also Team Deathmatch, a gang war mode where you can join clans, the feuds of which are said to carry over into the Grand Theft Auto 5 game when it comes out. Still, the bullet time is there, so playing in any match, you'll see people lunging at each other in slow motion, slamming into walls, filing cabinets, and so on, all while explosions are going off, and I'm standing there for a good 5 seconds pumping bullets into some motherfucker to kill him, only to be one-shotted by him as he falls to his back. Total unbalanced chaos. It still manages to have its fun moments here and there, but you'll really need to do some level grinding before getting the same death on 2 feet feeling that you occasionally get from the single-player campaign. And even then, it'll sometimes still boil down to who the game thinks went into bullet time first. Total bullshit. Not worth the time, certainly not worth the money. Max Payne 3 is not the worst shooter I've ever played, or even the worst game period that I've ever played. It's just the worst Max Payne game that I've ever played. It does nothing to set itself apart, it's totally generic and derivative, and even incorporates aspects of shooters that have come out since the original game, such as cover-based shooting, over-the-shoulder shooting, and mixes it with its good old bullet time mechanics, which have also been used in Fear and other shooter series since the first Max Payne was released, the end result being that it doesn't feel any better or any different than any other crime-based third-person cover shooter on the market today, and plays worse than most thanks to the combination of two different mechanic styles that don't really belong together. The storyline is generic, does nothing to advance Max as a character. None of the characters have any personal connections to Max like his wife and child did. It just feels like Rockstar had a mediocre third-person shooter full of glitches galore that they suspected wouldn't sell for fuck, and decided to drop Max Payne and his zip wow bullet time into it and push it across on name recognition alone. There's some fun to be had there, but as soon as you finish it, you'll forget it. Max Payne 3 gets 3.5 out of 7. Here I come, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you. I jump! Pow, 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 pow. Oh! Damn you, stairs! Damn you!